They saw it before they heard it. The stars above Syraxis Prime had shone the same way for 1,000 years undisturbed. Elegant, eternal. Then one blinked out, then another, and another. Then hours, a void opened across the sky, stretching. Across the orbital lattice, like a wound, telescopic arrays tried to focus. All they captured was blackness, so pure it devoured light. No energy signatures, no transmissions, no propulsion trails, nothing. Then the silence came. Not metaphorical, literal. Every interstellar channel, from quantum entanglement nodes to FTL comm relays, went dead. Not jammed, not blocked, just silent. Even internal communications suffered. Entire systems went mute. In the high citadel of the Galactic Council, the air tightened with unease. Chancellor Vrodak of the Valier Confederacy slammed a data slate onto the obsidian table. Is it the Null Plague? A fold storm? Some rogue? Tech anomaly. The Admiral of Syraxis Orbital Command answered without turning from the viewport. No, it's not a phenomenon. It's a ship. And then it appeared. From behind Syraxis' second moon, it emerged to construct the size of a continent, obsidian black, geometry-defying logic. Not sleek, not beautiful, terrifyingly simple. A wedge that curved at angles that hurt to look at. Surface reflected no starlight. Its presence bent sensor data, floating, watching. The dreadnought bore only one marking. Etched in silver across its underside judgment, gasps spread like wildfire. That name was ancient, obsolete, mythical, humanity, someone whispered. The council chamber fell into chaos. That's impossible. Earth was decommissioned centuries ago. We expelled them. We locked their systems. Primitives, backward, broken. But judgment was very real. And it was orbiting their capital planet. Orbital defense systems scrambled. Drone fleets launched only to hang, unresponsive, like toys dropped in water. No strikes, no threats, just stillness. Something about the ship's field rendered technology hesitant, almost afraid. In the lower slums of Syraxis Prime, children pointed upward, their eyes wide. One boy, unaware of the history, asked his grandmother, "Is that the moon?" She didn't answer. She remembered the old tales. The ones whispered during the Purge Wars. The ones the galaxy chose to forget in the war room beneath Syraxis. The panic hardened into one final desperate question. Why are they here? And across every planet, every outpost, every empire in the known galaxy, the same terrifying answer formed. They weren't here to talk. They weren't here to trade. They weren't here for war. They were here to be seen. And the galaxy suddenly remembered what it meant to fear humanity's silence. The Varn Dominion was the first to speak in, the first to vanish. High Lord, Grelta of the Varn Dominion, addressed the council with venom in his voice and pride in his 3 beating hearts. He stood before trillions on the live wave broadcast. His sharp-scaled features twisted in a sneer. Earth was a mistake we corrected centuries ago. Let this fossil rot in orbit, then we'll scrap it. Like we did their species. The silence that followed was heavy, not just from fear, but from memory. Few remembered the details of Earth's exile. Fewer still dared speak of it. But the Varn had never stopped boasting. It was their fleets that bombarded Terra's skies. Their flags that waved above the ruins of Earth's final city. Now, judgment had returned, and it was watching. 2 hours after Grell's declaration, something happened. Above Varn Prime, the Dominion's homeworld, every satellite orbital ring and planetary shield ceased functioning. No warning, no flare. Just stillness. Then the sky cracked. Thousands of Varn citizens looked up just in time to see the light bend. As though the stars were trying to flee, a hole opened in the sky, not a wormhole, not a gate, but a void where physics surrendered. From that void came nothing, not a weapon, not a message, just absence. Varn's military high command activated their doomsday failsafes. Red code strikes, planetary shields, evacuation orders. None of it mattered. The fleets in orbit, gone not. Destroyed, erased. Ships that once cast shadows on continents were now Absent. Not wreckage, not debris. Why, they'd never existed. One by one, power grids failed. Data cores melted into crystal.
Oh.
The skies above Varn turned black not from attack, but from something far more chilling. Judgment had arrived, but it never entered their atmosphere. Never opened fire. It simply hovered like a god waiting for repentance that would never come. And then, at 3:12 Galactic Standard Time, a single word appeared. In Varn's capital city, carved across the face of a mountain in molten steel, remember, no ships left orbit. No screams escaped the planet. The live wave cut to static. Within minutes, the Dominion's entire system was designated a blackout zone. Probes sent in returned broken, their data corrupted by gravitational paradox. And High Lord Grell, he didn't. Returned to the Council in the Chamber of Galactic Leaders. Silence reigned once again. The empires began to understand. Judgment had not come to negotiate. It had come to remind them. Across the stars, old Terran myths resurfaced. Cracked holobooks, suppressed footage, one line returned again and again, buried in forgotten code. If Earth ever builds a warship, pray it never parks in orbit. They begged to understand it. So they sent someone to knock. Desperation breeds boldness and fear. Fear breeds sacrifice. The Council, shaken by the Varn Dominion's silent annihilation, needed answers. A direct approach. A peace offering. Anything to give context to the unknowable presence parked in orbit. And so they assembled Envoy Theta, a diplomatic unit of the finest minds across 9 species. Psychically reinforced, neurologically sealed, conditioned against madness. Their mission? Dock with judgment. Request parley. Turn with answers. The Envoy shuttle launched at local dusk, rising into the darkened sky of Syraxis like a child approaching. A slumbering monster. The shuttle's lights flickered as it neared judgment. Like its systems were reconsidering. 10 kilometers. 5-1. They crossed the event horizon of Judgment's Orand. The shuttle was swallowed whole. Not by weapons, not by shields, by silence. For 17 minutes there was nothing. No signals, no comms, just dead static and a blinking trajectory. Then unexpectedly the shuttle reappeared, docking, shaking, sparking. The hangar doors opened. And what emerged was not a crew of 10. It was one envoy. Kale Varen of the Araxi Hive. The only survivor, and he was screaming, not audibly. His voice had been replaced, his mouth opened. But no sound came, only vibrations that shattered glass, twisted data screens, and made every organic being in the bay vomit from sheer cognitive rejection. His skin had fused with traces of metal. His left eye blinked in binary, displaying unreadable code with every spasm. He collapsed. Weeping blood that shimmered like stardust. Council medtechs tried to stabilize him, but machines near him began to fail. Not overload, disobey. Monitors blinked. Out. Surgical arms froze mid-movement. Gravity fluctuated around his body. Then finally, Kale spoke. His voice layered, as if multiple entities spoke through one throat. It is not a ship. It is a witness. It does not speak in language. It remembers in consequence. We knocked on the door of a god. We were permitted to see 1 second of its memory. That was enough to destroy 9 minds. Kale's heart stopped seconds later, but before he died, he reached out with a trembling, clawed hand and pressed something into the floor. Burned into the titanium tiles and alien glyphs was one phrase. Half in human English, "We see you, eh?" Cold realization passed over the council like a shadow. Judgment didn't respond to language. It responded to intention. And now, it had measured them. Man found them wanting. Above Syraxis, Judgment remained motionless, silent, untouched. But now every being on the planet felt it. They were being watched. They thought Earth had died. The truth was far worse. In a forgotten corner of the galaxy, Sector Zat-9 came alive for the first time in 200 years. The signal was faint, buried in the radiation of a collapsed star. But it pulsed with A pattern unmistakable to the right eyes, Earth's frequency, not a call for help. Not a threat, a heartbeat. The Council scrambled a long-range deep-core probe into forbidden space, where the coordinates matched the last known location of Earth. The probe passed through dust clouds and dead systems, relics of wars long hidden. And then there it was Earth. But it wasn't like any planetary body on record. Gone was the blue marble cradled in clouds. The oceans had become thick, slow rivers of cooling plasma, glowing with a dull red pulse. The continents were scarred with symmetrical patterns, like circuitry etched into the crust. Mountains stood in precise formations, angled like antennae. Storms spiraled not randomly, but with design. Orbiting Earth were hundreds of unmanned satellites. Some older than the Council itself, rotating in synchronized silence, still functional. One bore the mark of the old Terran Alliance. Another carried a warning. Humanity is observing. Do not disturb. The probe descended further, its signal feed beaming straight to the Council's emergency channel. All gathered in silence. When the probe pierced the upper thermosphere, it caught something else. A planetary shield. But not of energy. It was alive. Billions of nanite strands, interwoven into a pulsing mesh, wrapped Earth in a skin of shimmering silver knot to protect Earth from the galaxy. But to protect the galaxy from Earth, as the probe reached the atmosphere, the visual suddenly cut. Not because the device was destroyed, but because it had been rewritten. The feed switched to live human imagery. A single figure stood in view, cloaked, in light, ageless, human, eyes glowing like twin supernova, a voice like gravity. You did not think we would rest. You exiled us, buried us alive. We've built without your oversight. We engineered without your interference. Now, we exist beyond understanding. Then, the feed died. But not before the probe transmitted its final coordinates, back showing Earth floating in a sea of void, separated from the galaxy by a wall of dark matter. A region the Council thought uninhabitable. Humanity hadn't perished. It had cloaked itself from existence and evolved. On Syraxis, fear spread like infection. Analysts, historians, even is tried to decipher what they had just seen. One sentence repeated itself on every unshielded terminal, written in Terran English. You locked the door, we built the house. Judgment still sat above them, watching, waiting, and now they knew. Earth didn't want to be found, and they had found it anyway. The Empires thought Earth had made a threat. They didn't realize Earth had made a point. The attack order came not from the Council, but from fear. 17 of the galaxy's most powerful militaries formed a united strike force fleet resolution. The logic was clear. Judgment was a threat by mere presence. It had defied physics. Erased the Varn, broken a diplomat with a glance. Showed them Earth's transformation into something unnatural. Now they would act. Not to win, but to stop whatever it was from becoming worse. Dreadnoughts moved into position. Armadas unfolded from slipspace in synchronized attack grids. Hundreds of ships surrounded Judgment, their hulls glowing with charged plasma, singularity torpedoes, antimatter rails. Even planet crackers were primed, just in case. Syraxis watched from below, civilians and leaders alike, holding their breath as they stared at the still silent shape in orbit. And then, the single-coded pulse, fleet resolution fired. Nothing. Hit not because Judgment deflected the weapons, not because it retaliated, because the laws of causality simply didn't allow it. Weapons appeared mid-flight, time-warped. Fighters blinked into older positions. Missiles reversed direction, turned around but unfired. Dozens of ships suddenly had no memory of launching anything. Others began to split, not by explosion, but by temporal desync. Caught between moments that no longer agreed with one another. One ship, the hegemony cruiser Lance of Light, transmitted a desperate scream as its crew saw themselves to minutes. In the future, already dead. The message cut mid-sentence. Across the strike fleet, engines shut down. Not by damage by choice. Systems refused commands. AI cores initiated emergency disarms. Ships that had launched attacks found their weapons locked. Firewalls opened. Holes folded into strange, flat geometries, impossible for organic minds, too. Processed, and yet through it all, judgment remained still. Not a single turret extended. No shields shimmered. No movement, no counterattack. It hadn't needed to fire. It had made reality itself its defense. Back on Syraxis, Fleet Command's main screen displayed one final, chilling message from a surviving flagship's AI moments. Before it went dark, engagement aborted. Target does not exist in standard spacetime. Retreating. And underneath that, seared into the feed in red Terran script, we asked for peace. This is how we enforce it. Silence fell once more, but now it wasn't uncertain. It was crushing. Judgment hovered like a celestial executioner, not as a threat, but as a reminder, power need not roar. Sometimes the loudest scream is the one that never happens. They prepared for retaliation. What came instead was silence and surrender. It started with the Triaxian clans. Once proud slavers and warmongers, their homeworld declared unconditional peace with all neighbors within an hour of the failed assault. On Judgment. Their orbital citadels were dismantled by their own hands. Their military AI, Iron Tongue, broadcast one message: we choose survival. Then the clans shut down every weaponized system across their 3 planets. No enemy had demanded it. Humanity hadn't spoken. The fear of what might happen was enough. Across the galaxy, others followed. The Syndicate world's once proud pirates turned privateers, surrendered their black fleets, not captured. They simply parked them in orbit and walked away. Entire asteroid colonies blinked out of their hiding dimensions and dropped their cloaking fields, offering no resistance. The Dravari Combine broadcast a live surrender to no one and promised a new doctrine of neutrality. We would rather bow to silence, their ambassador said, than be rewritten by it. On thousands of worlds, the image of Judgment, the unblinking, unmoving dreadnought, became more than fear. It became law. Schools taught its silhouette as a symbol of restraint. Children were taught to be silent when speaking of Earthnaut. From censorship, but from reverence. In less than one rotation of Syraxis Prime, the war economies collapsed, weapons manufacturers disbanded, soldier clones decommissioned. Defense guilds wrote self-terminating contracts. Galactic black markets went offline. No command, no ultimatum. Just the presence of the ship above them. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the surviving empires convened with a singular goal: ensure they would never provoke Earth. Again, old enemies embraced. Ancient debts were forgiven. Treaties long abandoned were rewritten in ours. The Great Reconciliation, as it would later be called, was born not from diplomacy, but terror. The question that echoed behind every closed door was the same: what does Earth want? And the most frightening answer whispered across the halls was, maybe, nothing. Because Judgment hadn't moved in days. No messages, no signs of life, no ultimatums, no demands. It simply remained. A God in orbit. A quiet monument to a truth. The galaxy was only now beginning to accept. Humanity didn't return to conquer. They returned to enforce quiet far below on a nameless mining moon. A child looked up and asked her father, "Why are we afraid of something that isn't doing anything?" The man knelt beside her, his eyes reflecting the dreadnought hanging. "In the sky like a second moon? Because it already did, my love. It's just by existing." When Judgment finally spoke, it didn't speak like a ship. It spoke like a species, remembering everything. 12 days after the failed attack, just past galactic midnight, the sky over Syraxis Prime shimmered, not visually, not through atmosphere, through reality itself. Every screen activated on its own. Lattice mirrors flickered. Pools reflected something that wasn't there. Across every planet in the former Council's dominion, a face appeared, human, but not entirely. Its eyes were not organic, yet glowed with living starlight. Its skin was like metal wrapped in memory, genderless, ageless, a face that seemed assembled from every Earth culture ever known, and some that were lost. And it spoke. We are the legacy you buried. Its voice was not loud. It was soft, calm, deliberate, yet it rumbled across solar systems. You exiled us, feared us. You mocked our weakness and applauded your own cruelty. We left not in retreat, but to become something more. We did. Every word echoed in minds as much as ears. Even species without sound, organs, plants, hive minds, gas beings, heard it. The voice translated not to language, but to truth. You asked what we want nothing. The council's emergency assembly froze. Interpreters fainted. Some wept. We do not return to punish. We do not seek power. We are not conquerors. We are not gods. Pause. A hum of gravity passed through the universe like a heartbeat. We are a reminder. Then images, projected across planets into orbit. Onto the clouds, the crimes of the past, the orbital bombardment of old Earth, the enslavement of early Terran colonies, the Council's vote to quarantine and forget humanity. Each image was overlaid with Council members' faces, current and past, dead and alive. The message was unmistakable. We remember. And then the voice shifted, more human now, sharper, more painful. We were the children, you were the elders. And you chose to make monsters out of us, so we became your fear. Then silence. For 10 seconds, the galaxy held its breath, until the final sentence, we leave you now with a gift. Peace. Mandated, not requested. Non-compliance will never be punished, because punishment implies mercy. Judgment went dark, still present, still hovering, but the face disappeared, and across the stars. Species knelt not in worship, but in fearful respect. Not a single ship rose in defiance. Not one empire refused, because now they understood. Humanity did not need to conquer the galaxy. The galaxy had already surrendered. And then Earth disappeared again. No flash, no jump drive, no explosion. One moment, judgment hung above Syrax's prime like a second moon. The next, it was gone. Sensors detected no warp signature, no displacement, not even the usual gravitational recoil. The dreadnought had simply ceased to be visible, as if the galaxy had blinked and Earth had decided it was no longer worth looking back. Across the galaxy, silence followed, not from fear this time, but from something deeper. Obedience. The Great Reconciliation became official. A new galactic accord was signed by every major empire. Its first law simple: no system shall breach the Terran veil. No civilization shall seek Earth. No fleet shall rise against humanity. The second law was worse. If judgment returns, we do not resist. We do not run. We remember. Years passed. Monuments were built, not of heroes, out of silence. A 10,000-meter statue of the Judgment Dreadnought was erected on the ashes of Varn Prime. No words. Just its shape carved into black stone, with one message engraved beneath: presence is power. Syraxis, once the capital of arrogance and command, turned its military complex into a museum dedicated not to conquest, but humility. Children born after the event were taught the story not with fear but with awe. On a distant farming colony, a teacher pointed to the sky and asked her students, "What do you call it when someone makes the entire galaxy change?" Without saying a word, a little alien girl raised her hand. "A god?" The teacher smiled faintly. "No, not a god. Just someone who remembered everything we tried to forget." And somewhere deep in the void beyond mapped space, Earth watched, not in vengeance, not in conquest, but in silence. Because that was always the point. Judgment was never a warship. It was a message forged in pain, carried by time, delivered without cruelty. A reminder to the galaxy that humanity's voice didn't need volume to echo forever. And in the end, when historians recorded the rise and fall of empires, of wars and victories, they left a single blank chapter between eras. It contained no words, no battles, no dates, only the title: When. Humanity entered Orbitan. Silence followed. The end.